I'll keep it. Kind of matches what I'm wearing. That's so true. Power of imagination, which that's what we're about today. Power of imagination. And I imagined this morning several things. Actually, I imagined myself being here, and I showed up. Yesterday, I wasn't so sure. But it wasn't because of the physical malady that I'm dealing with. It was because I was blessed by a couple of angels during the week. A couple of angels that I went to ministerial school with, and they've been my prayer partners for, well, let's see, we figured it out. We've actually been prayer partners for 16 years. And so when they heard the news, the diagnosis, and unknowing, what's going to happen when, and of course none of us know when or what or how or any of that kind of stuff, but there was a sense of, you know what, I don't want to affirm any kind of time frame or anything like that. I don't want to affirm that this thing that is going on is what some people are saying that it is, but what I do know is that I want to spend some time doing what we did so beautifully and had so much fun with in ministerial school, and that is hang out, laugh, cry, play, pray, and run and skip together. And so we spent several days last week doing just that in Aptos and what's that other little town? Capitola, yeah. And and it was beautiful because none of us really thought about, really it didn't even come up until my friend, my sweetheart Wendy, who I fell in love with in ministerial school, said in between the tears when I was sharing the information with her over the phone, she said, so what are you going to do? And I says, well, I'm going to do everything that I've always wanted to do and haven't allowed myself or given myself the time to do. And I said, and what that includes always is play and fun. And so I told her what my daughter was doing, and my daughter has a very vivid imagination. She works with it really well, and she said, Dad, I want to get something that will fund whatever it is that you want to do. And what is that? And I said, well, I want to go to Disney World. And she said, great. Well, as soon as Wendy heard that, she says, all right, I'm going. I'll spend 3 days at Disney World with you, and we'll do the kinds of things that we used to do when we were in Lee Summit together at Unity Village. And so, well, one thing led to another, and I thought, well, until I'm completely finished with treatment, I don't think that that's going to be such a hot idea, going to Disney World, where I'm going to be into a lot of energy and expelling a lot of energy. So this came through the imagination. You know what? I see us in a house along the coast somewhere, at the ocean, somewhere close to you, Lennis, and I don't know what that looks like, but I just so happens I have a friend who lives in that area, who rents her place out from time to time, but she usually has about a year or two notice. And so I said, hey, do whatever you can do. Our other friend Sharon, who's also a minister, she's in St. Louis. Wendy's in Colorado, Denver. And Sharon's in St. Louis, and of course Sharon hears about it because we're prayer partners, and she says, hey, I'm on board. Now check this out. Here's two people. Wendy has a 5-year-old little boy at home, a husband who is in a crunch time in the work that he does, and so he's working nonstop, 24/7 it seems like, at least in her world, and she's got a 5-year-old, and anybody that remembers those days knows that that's quite a demand on time, energy, and so on. And my friend Wendy just took on my friend Sharon just took on a new ministry in St. Louis, Missouri, which is also where she's from. So she's done full circle in ministry. Back in her hometown, and she just sold the house in the city where she was the minister, and is in the process of selling that, and it was going kind of slowly. She's in the process of buying a new house, and she had a small window, and she said, you know what, if it can work within these days, I can come just as my house is selling here, and my new one is closing here, and I would love to come hang out with you guys on the beach in California for a few days. And so we all just kind of visualized us being together, walking the beach, playing, singing, well, playing and crying and doing all the stuff that we did for 2 years in ministerial school through that journey. And voila, they showed up on Wednesday afternoon, picked them up from the airport, and we have been doing what we do best for the past few days. And then I came home Friday, and as Spirit has it, they were helping me set up the bowls. I took 6 of them to the little cabin with us, or with me, to the cottage and played them. And of course, you know, play the bowls, people get addicted, or they get swept away by the angels, and they did. So they decided they wanted to come and help me set up, and they wanted me to give them a private session on Friday before bowl night. I did, took them back to the airport. Of course, by that time, Sharon had fallen in love with the bowl and said, "That's my bowl," and she had an emotional experience that confirmed that it was her bowl. And so I took her to the airport. Wendy and I are wondering what we're going to do next, and for some reason couldn't come to the conclusion or come up with what we're going to do until I take her to the airport and come back here and do bowl night. We get a call from Sharon. Sharon says, "The flight got all messed up. They're asking me to spend the night here. Would you mind coming and picking me up and me spending the night at your place tonight?" I said, "Well, that's why we couldn't figure out what to do." So we turned around, went back, picked Sharon up. We come here, set up the bowls. I do bowl night. I go home. Sharon and I get up yesterday morning. We're playing bowls, and it just so happens she fell in love with 3 more. And you know, I've always had this fantasy, this idea since I became a dealer for crystal tones that this would become a business. Most of all, it's such a huge part of my life that sometimes it feels like it is my life, and it truly is, because they're such beautiful beings and do such great things in people's lives. And so anytime someone falls in love with one or gets that's my bowl and I want to bring it home and add it to my practice, of course I say yes, sometimes dragging my feet and clawing the walls because I don't want to let go of them. And just in these last 2 weeks, I am really grateful to say that I have sold 11 bowls.
Wow.
And that's huge because they're not cheap. But it just goes to show the power of imagination. I did not know I was going to tell you that story this morning. Actually, this morning I couldn't figure out what I was going to tell you this morning. I just knew that it couldn't be anything that I put together from my own intellect. You know, I do have a couple of readings that I want to share with you about the power of imagination. I think is one of the most powerful tools that we have. And I don't even like calling it a tool because it's our nature to create. You know, some people call us co-creators because we are one in the Spirit, right? There is a spark of divinity in all of us, as our second principle says. And, you know, that used to be okay with me until these last few years, and then what is more okay with me, or feels more like truth, is that, no, we are the creators. We are creators. We are that which manifested or brought us into manifestation, right? So we are of the same stuff, created in the image and likeness, which means we have that potential and power. All we have to do is learn how to use it. Interesting thing about it, I love what James Dillett Freeman says. Oh, I guess I will use that. He said, well, one thing that he says, our imagination can become a blessing or a curse depending on how well we have developed some of the other powers of our mind and spirit. And of course, I like it because he uses the example of, he uses another power that we've celebrated, and it's called the power of faith. He says, nowhere does it say anywhere in the Bible, does it have Jesus saying, according to your imagination, be it be done. But it does say in Matthew that it is according to your faith that it be done. And what comes forth for our faith to be solid in and to move in and from? The imagination. Every idea, whether we realize it or not, is setting a course in motion that is taking us exactly to where our next experience is going to be, for us to raise up our consciousness to get closer and closer to the memory the first idea, the cause of our existence, which is oneness and that of a Creator. How many of you see yourself every single day and everything you think, say, and do as creating a universe unto yourself that is going to be a blessing to everyone in the world and the universes? I'll bet you not many people get up with that thought or that idea. I am creation. I am one with creation. What shall I create today? You wouldn't believe some of the emails and suggestions I've gotten in the last 3 months about how to use the imagination to eat the, to eat that malady that was found in my liver a few months ago. I had one guy say, he goes, I got it. He says, this is what you do every day when you go to your altar. He says, you imagine this thing with really, really sharp teeth that never stops doing this, eating away at every particle of this cancer that is in your liver. Yeah. And that's how it will go. Yeah. You see, and some people are saying, yeah, that's what you do. That's what you do. And I have more, but I won't share all of them with you because I really do want a cup of coffee pretty soon. And I really want to go out and do some playing this afternoon. But it's like it can be a blessing or a curse. But the first thing I think that I have to be aware of is that everything that I say and do is in fact bringing something into play. And I need to be congruent. I need to be consistent with what it is that I want to bring into play. Right now, what I'm bringing into play in my life is literally as much play as I possibly can bring in. Because for me, that is probably the greatest thing I can do, and even greater than meditation and prayer. See, there's something that happens to me when I play. And I'm not talking about the kind of play that, oh yeah, that was nice, the kind of play that's acceptable to a lot of people in our society, especially being adults. There's only certain things that are permissible. I'm talking about the all-out play that allows you to scream and dance and yell and belly laugh and get on the ground and roll with Phoebe. And I'm talking about that kind of play. I'm talking about the kind of play that says, man, when I say dance, I mean on the beach, at the ocean, whirling and twirling like I have no cares in the world, and it's just a matter of moments before I lift off the ground. That's how free I feel. And when I am playing, hitting a volleyball, or my new ping pong ball, which I've just invested in a ping pong table, when I'm doing that kind of stuff, did you know that all of the inhibitions, all of my fears, all of my insecurities, all of my judgments about you go completely right out the window? Remember what the little boy said, the most wisest child on the planet? Play is when we don't know that we're different from each other. Play is when we can let go without even consciously trying. Because Fillmore said, intellectually, you're not going to get it. So stop wasting your time. He didn't say that, I'm ad-libbing. That's Lennis Baugh's interpretation of Charles Fillmore. Greg Braden, who is one of my heroes, and he's just one of my heroes, somebody that I totally love and honor. And I love what he says about it. He says, there is a place where all things begin, a location of pure energy that simply is. In this quantum incubator for reality, all things are possible. From our personal successes, abundance, and healing to our failure, lack, and disease. Everything from our greatest fear to our deepest desire begins in this soup of potential. It's just waiting for us to give birth to it, whatever it is. Through the reality makers of imagination, expectation, judgment, passion, and prayer, we galvanize each possibility into existence. In our beliefs about who we are, what we have and don't have, and what should and shouldn't be, we breathe life into our greatest joys as well as our darkest moments. What are you breathing into today? What are you imagining your day like today? What are you imagining the next 30 minutes of your day like today? The imagination isn't child's play. But you don't need me to tell you that. You know from your own creativity, that which you have created in your life. The songs that you sing, I can see it in you. You imagine yourself singing from the top of a mountain, and when you sing, it's as if you are. You're free. You know the sky is yours, just in your motion. Is that freedom to you? Do you know how to be that free? Do you know how to let your imagination truly be that which is in alignment with the laws? It says in Ephesians, finally be strong in the Lord / in metaphysical interpretation, law, and in the strength of its power. Be consistent with the law of mind action. Be consistent with the law of imagination, grounded in the power of faith. And guess what happens when you think of the creator of your being, the creative experience, the creative intelligence? All of a sudden there's a love there, because there's a uniting there. There is a sense of oneness there that's so easy to lose when we get news about things that in society's eyes so much of the time says, ain't it awful? Boy, anybody know what that's like? I had an idea this morning about not bringing anything to read, about not making any notes, and I have notes. You will not believe the notes I have for the power of imagination, the stories and so on. I can tell them all. But you know what? There are no stories but yours. What have you created with your imagination? Can you think of one thing right now that you have created with your own imagination that has brought joy and beauty and pleasure into your life? Anybody want to share one?
Garden.
What?
Garden.
A garden?
Art.
Art?
My jewelry.
Jewelry? That you've created? That you've created? What?
Our relationship.
Your relationship with me?
No, my husband.
Oh, sorry.
You too. Yeah.
I know. That's why I said it. I know.
Remodeled homes.
Remodeled homes? Look at that. Everyone in here that I can read right now is thinking about what I have created with my imagination. Is it possible that sometimes all we need is a little bit of space, a little bit of permission, an invitation to say, wow, I am a creative being. What shall I do? What shall I bring into manifestation that'll bring joy, pleasure, beauty, awe, and wonder to us all? And then on another note, what have I brought into my life through the power of imagination that was of a darker nature? Now those you may not be so willing to share. You know, there was a time when I would say, well, that of a darker nature, I would say my addiction. You know, drinking the amounts of alcohol, doing the amounts of chemicals that I have done in that period of 13 years or more, I would say, well, that was of a darker nature. Today I say it was one of the greatest blessings that I've ever had. Reason being, not only has it introduced me to a life that I couldn't even imagine, but it has introduced me to some gifts that I have as a creator, and of being willing to say yes to being of service in a way that I never thought I even had it in me to do. And that is to help others overcome and recover from something similar. I think of this cancer thing, and I think, what is the message from it? Because it feels like a big dark one. And at the same time, if there's any truth to our first principle, how can there be such a thing as dark? It appears as dark though, doesn't it? It appears as painful, it appears as yucky. I remember Wendy and Sharon and I, when we were talking and crying and processing and sharing the way that we did throughout the 2 years of ministerial school, these last few nights that we were together, the first night, there was some planning that needed to happen around Friday, and none of us wanted to go there because it felt so painful. Because that meant we were all going in 3 different directions again. And then we had to laugh. Because the reality is that no matter where we are, there we are. And so we were able to embrace it and make the plans and get on with having a good time and do some more crying and some more laughing. And that is literally how the entire 3 days went. With the exception of running through the ocean waves and having a good time in that way. But so, you know, it's like, but I don't want to downplay the power of the darkness. I don't want to downplay the power of shadow. Because shadow will reveal some of our greatest gifts on the other side through whatever it is that appears dark. But it all happens through the imagination, whether consciously or unconsciously. Remember, I showed a diagram last week, and I really want to end with it. The diagram is the diagram that basically makes us all up. At the top is the conscious mind, that which directs us. It's how we get our direction. And it goes into the creative mind, the unconscious, that which obeys and creates. We take it in through the conscious mind. We direct it into here. In here, and our unconscious says, yep, it's a go. Be careful what you put in here. Because it will show up. And then over here says, yep, in the physical world, what you thought, brought, and said yes to says that which is created. That's it in a nutshell. Is life that simple? Have we created everything that we want to be and create? Of course not. Because if we had, we wouldn't be sitting here. Right? So what do you want to create? Somebody said this, and I don't know who said it. But he said, and I have a feeling it was Phineas Parkhurst Quimby, one of the founders of New Thought. The imagination is the creative faculty of mind. Ideas are the beginnings of all things, and imagination is the faculty that engineers them into form and function. And then he says, I tell you a lie and you believe it, immediately your inventive power or imagination commences to create that which I have explained. Be careful what you listen to. Be careful what you see and buy into. We are creators. We have a powerful creative mind. I don't need to say anything else, huh? Because I've reminded you of what's probably one of the most important things in your life. No, if not the most important part of your being. And that is that you are a creator. And that which you create impacts not just a few. But it's like a wave in the ocean. It continues to impact and impact and impact. In the beginning was the Word. And it came from here. You know, there's nothing greater than coming to a place feeling one way. Like, I really don't want to be here today. I'm not up for it. And then something says, yes you are. And you do it. And I'm standing here before you feeling fully charged, fully loved, and fully blessed. I can't think of a greater gift, a greater way to imagine than being surrounded and filled with the kind of love that's coming from your chair, body, spirit, soul. Thank you. And so it is. So I invite you at this time to take your love offering and bring it into your